Hi, this is Phil, and I'm here to tell you all about the Capes and Lunatics Patreon. Get early access to all of our interviews, including the monthly Chichester chats with writer and comic book legend D.G. Chichester, new episodes of classic Capes and Lunatics shows, including The Quantum Zone, This, That, or the Third, and many, many more specials, all completely uncensored. Access starts for $3 a month, full video when you pledge $5 a month. Check out the link in our show notes or go to patreon.com/capesandlunatics. Hope to see you there. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Capes and Lunatics episode. It's me, Phil. No Lilith, no Charlie, but I do have a very special guest. You probably heard of the Black Ballad if you, especially if you listen to the Third Best Southgate episode 7. But if not, I have Rick Heinz, who you're the writer, correct?
I am actually the CEO and founder of the studio, writer, all kinds of things that go along with all of this whole project.
So the big man in charge. All right. About time. Yes. I was waiting for Rob Southgate to send me information. I got nothing. But I thought that's what I heard, that you were the man in charge. So, So Storytellers Forge Studios, I'll get all into all of that stuff, but it's co-founded between me and two other people, but this was ultimately this entire project that we assembled, and we wrote, I'm the main writer that behind the scenes that does, crazy content about death and what happens after you TPK your party. So there's a lot of us that work on tabletop RPG projects, but I'm a novelist primarily, and so I had written a few novels ahead of time that are sarcastic stuff about the end of the world. And I had been writing in tabletop games since I was like 17 years old. And, everything from, White Wolf to Shadowrun, Cyberpunk, like a bunch of different game lines, storytelling, playing in, some freelance minor contributions here. But some years back, I helmed and wrote with Pat Edwards my first major RPG campaign, the Red Opera. And then I did writing director on another project. And then the Black Ballad is like fully ours. And we just launched it. So again, you'll have to excuse me. I'm not the most knowledgeable about the gaming and all that. Tell everyone what is the Black Ballad. Okay, so if any of you guys play tabletop RPG role-playing games, the Black Ballad is the perfect adventure to run after you kill your entire party. In a lot of tabletop games, death usually means the end, or storytellers have to figure out what they're going to do when the story ends. And even as like comic book fans and people Marvel, it's like we know that there's an afterlife, there's death. Characters are coming back all of the time, and resurrection is a common theme, even in video games and in all comics. Characters are always coming back. You just respawn. But what about that waiting period? What happens to the characters and their souls when they're stuck in the afterlife? And what are the implications in a society when anybody can be revived for a cost of 100 gold piece diamond? Or, magic and clerics and necromancers can just bring souls back from the dead. Perhaps the reason that fantasy worlds never truly evolve is because nobody ever really dies. And we're going to play around with these divine themes in the Black Ballad through this massive 400 page, like 300 page plus like epic campaign that's about a year and a half of gameplay for your players to determine whether or not resurrection magic should even be allowed to exist. Are they willing to fight a god for their convictions? Are they willing to escape from the prison or purgatory, or will they find new purpose in the afterlife? And what makes it even more special is we partnered with the heavy metal band Diamorte, Mike Pittman from Symphony X, and Michael Pittman from Riot Games. Which if you guys have played League of Legends or seen Arcane and other things, he's one of the composers for their music, and Michael Romero from Symphony X. And we have a full custom soundtrack that goes along with the entire campaign. So when you're actually playing at the table with your friends, you have just this wickedly cool soundtrack to go along with like the iconic beats of the story that you're playing.
Oh, nice.
So gaming is a way for a lot of players to sit around at the table, actually collaborate, have a lot of fun, do something in person. And it's all about telling the story at your table. And this idea of the Black Ballad has kind of been born from the thoughts that I've been storytelling for so many years. And I've seen and taught other people how to be storytelling. You're always hearing about like, yep, I TPK'd my party and that's the end of that campaign. Are you guys still playing it anymore? No, that game ended. So we all found different gaming groups. And it's like, wait a minute, hold on a second here. What if you didn't have to? What if the journey continued? And what if it also touched base on themes that are often, kind of hedged around? And then what if you were a group of gamers that had played D&D back in college, right? Or, 10, 20 years ago. And you had all of these characters that have since either died in this one game, or your favorite characters. What if there was a chance for them to ride one more time for something actually meaningful, epic, and metal? And that's what we started writing. We formed our own studio because creatives in a lot of industries, whether it be tabletop gaming, comics, freelance art, you can at this point find stories on the internet almost daily of the struggles of freelancers and things like that. And we were like, no, we're going to do a studio that is no to AI art. We let our creators own the rights. We're going to do something like different for us because we've all worked in these other companies. We're like, no, wait a minute, unshackled and independent, we could do this really cool thing and tell a story that we couldn't have lit anywhere else.
And you said you're a novelist also. I've talked to a bunch of comic book writers, and like some of them have even worked in like television and stuff, and saying like writing a comic is so different from like writing for TV and even movies. Like, okay, time to brag. When you're creating a game like this, it's so much more than like even when you're writing a novel, which is hard enough, right? It's like a novel, it's you're thinking, okay, the characters are going to go from point A to point B to point C. But when you're creating a game, you have to think there's 50 different directions a player can go. So you have to,
especially in tabletop gaming, right? Where it's unlike a video game, I can at least write these few narrative tracks, right? And I also have to write it in the sense that I'm not the one who's going to be sitting there telling and narrating that story to you guys, right? It has to be written almost in a way that is still flavorful and fun for anybody to read it, like they just wanted to read a story, but also be instructional for anybody to pick on it up. And luckily, I have a lot of experience in teaching storytellers and getting people into like, how do you take that step to be the person in that chair? And that's actually where the name for the studio comes from, Storytellers Forge. At some point, maybe in this, I can talk about this whole program that we ran, where we were teaching, kids ages 8 to 17 how to become storytellers, because we always need more of them. Okay. And so I had been writing, I did for about 2.5 years for Geek and Sundry, and Nerdist. I had written a lot of like storytelling tips and tricks. We called it the GM Tips series. And writing in a game book is very much I'm writing to the storyteller. Right. It's the players get some fun options. There's some parts in there for them, but it's a lot of, you kind of got to mix the like here's this section that just drips and oozes with wicked flavor that's going to set a mood. And then I'm also going to be like, hey, Phil, all right, listen, when your players do this, here are your options, right? And if they do something completely off the rails, here's the themes that you want to hit on to bring the story back to where you want to go. Or if they are going to go off the rails, here's some inspirational ideas that you can run with that so you're not completely lost.
So creating something like this is like, again, probably unlike any other writing in the world, because it's not just you telling a story. You have to set up this world for someone else to guide other people through this.
I actually kind of debate on whether or not writing a novel is harder than writing a game book. And so, because there's two merits to both. A novel, like, my series tends to be roughly novels run around 110 to 140,000 words, right? Mm-hmm. And I get to put on music, I get lost in the zone, and I just, imagine demons and magic in the world, and I get to have a lot of fun with that. And I'll argue with my own characters in my own head, and it'll be a freaking treat. But in the game world, or writing for games, the nice thing is outlines are life, and I can sit on down and I can write just one section. And then I can go. I don't have to necessarily write them all in sequence, because it's like, oh, I'm going to do stat blocks today. I'm going to write this chapter on the setting. I'm going to write this part. So you can mix and match, and you can have other people help in a game world where you can't have that same kind of collaboration in, a novel. I can't have, 10 other writers in this. But if you think about the size of a game book, it's about 4 novels worth of content. So it is impossible to do, I was trying to say impossible. You can do it by yourself, but it is a much bigger body of work. So instead, it's more like writing for a video game or doing narrative design, where you're actually really catering this big giant master outline and then kind of filling in those sections as you go. And since you don't have to stitch everything together, that gives us some leeway to provide instructions in between those chapters to those other people. So it's interesting. It's a different kind of writing for sure. And you can definitely see different styles and strengths of different authors and writers. People who are purely tabletop RPG writing, if I give them a white piece of paper and I say, okay, cool, you fill out this section that describes what happens when you die in the afterlife. There is sometimes that freeze shock, because they're not used to just having that white piece of paper with nothing there. Because, in the tabletop world, you get a lot of, here's this outline, here's what we want, you have this many words, you get 3,000 words for this section. So I spend a lot of time sort of organizing that information so that, other people can fill in the blanks. Whereas in a novel world, it really just is on you to just go from zero. On the flip side, I am terrible at writing mechanics sometimes. I will write monster stat blocks, and I naturally want to describe this wraith is gonna vomit bloods of acid, and it's gonna do all these horrible things, and my monster ability will end up being a paragraph of narrative text, and then one of the tabletop specialists will come on in and just be like, it spits acid blood, it deals 3d8 damage. And I'm like, but all of that cool flavor. They're like, Rick, that goes in the novel part.
So is that another challenge to do it too, where it's you want to provide people with a fully solid formed idea, but also you want to give them room to adapt to how they're going to play the game?
Yeah. There's there is always that balance that you strike, which is really the purview of a wonderful editorial team. And, truly these books are forged in the fires of editing. And I know the phrase is often out there being told that, you have to kill your darlings, or you have to cut things back, or you have to go add more to tell people this is what you need to do. But our group of dev editors that we have are pretty vicious, and I love them. endlessly, because I'm definitely on the writing side. I come up with all the fun ideas. Me and Pat Edwards and a few other writers, we were like boom, 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 and then the editorial team's gonna go, cool, let's distill this down now, and we're gonna rip this stuff out, and I'm gonna be like, but that's a really beautiful sentence, it flows so well, I mean, look at that. They're like, no, delete.
Is it just for sake of space, or are they just like, no, you don't need all this, especially for a game where we want people to make it their own? And
no, it's more out of a sense of providing the information in a way that gives you some of that flavor, but then doesn't make the critical bit lost. Layout is really important in a game book, because when you're storytelling at a table, I could write these huge narrative blocks of NPC dialogue and setting information. And sometimes you do need to write a speech. There's like no other way to do it. But a lot of times the storyteller is going to be sitting there flipping through the book ad fly and just needs to, at a visual glance, see the bullet point. Wraith vomits acid blood on parties and explodes. And it's like, okay, I could write what that description looks like.
Wow.
But really, I just need to tell that and arm that person with there. And all of the flavor that I want to put around that, I put in a different section of the book that talks about how to storytell the themes, what kind of language you use, whether or not it be visceral, upbeat, happy, things like that. And that's one of the biggest difference between novels and this, is that separation of information to here's the part that you're in a live game session that you're just going to read at a glance, to you're the storyteller now actually just sitting back at home at night reading the book, and then they're going to be reading the sections that are just dripping with the cool content.
And from the beginning, from the conception of the idea to now, how long did it take to create the world of Black Ballad?
So to create the world, we started in September, and we spent most of October and November doing it. We already had the ideas. I already kind of knew this is a lot of stuff that I wanted to do with it. And we wrote pretty extensively all throughout from September all the way to January. And then because we're a small studio, we had to do that other part, which was pause and go, oh, we have to market. We have to actually start tackling okay, publishing, distribution, what are we going to do? Getting our art orders in, because art is what makes this, really shine as well. And so we spent some other time developing other parts of the game, and we just entered crowdfunding on March 7th. And then when we see where the crowdfunding goes, there's certain bits that people could back in the crowdfunding. Somebody could go on there right now and be like, I want to make a god and an entire religion in this world. And then they can back that tier, and then we'll sit with them, and they'll work with our design team. We'll design them their vision for a deity and a religion in the afterlife. And then we'll bake that into the story.
Wow.
So we could only go so far in development because we needed to leave that space open for other people to come up with an idea, and then we'll immortalize it in the book and have that part there.
Yeah, I mean, just that's always, even for me, it's just trying to get the word out about the podcast and stuff. It's it's so great that I think this is probably the most creative time in history. I mean, just I don't know, nerd culture or just everything, and but it's so hard for everyone to get their word out because there are so many people doing so many projects, which is great, but I think individually everyone's how do I get the word out about my stuff?
I mean, nerds have definitely inherited the earth.
Oh yeah.
What was once considered to the side is now pop culture.
Oh yeah.
And COVID, I think, as traumatic as it was and as hard hitting as it was for many things, one boon that it did have was that because people were trapped at home, they reached to the end of the internet and they got tired of people started reading again.
Yes.
And I was as an author, I'm yes, I have books. And so that was definitely like a boon. And then the other thing was there has been this shift to recognizing who some of the creators are behind the things. I mean, this entire like podcast about, capes and like, superheroes and pop cultures and things like that. We often attribute, people will be like, oh, Robert Downey Jr. is Iron Man, and if that actor ever did something like, wrong or out there, and there's a whole thing that goes with it. But at the point, all the way back, some writer in a room actually wrote that script and came up with the characters and did the things. There's so many people along the way that make things, but everything does distill back to some person who's nuts that will listen to music and write words on a keyboard.
Yes.
That's why I like going to conventions a lot. I'm always at anime conventions, pop culture cons. I'm always there because it's always voice actors and writers that you see there a lot of times, because it's the one way for us to get out from behind the animated characters or like the novel and be like, yes, I'm an actual person. Like, I exist. Here's who I am.
Yeah, it does seem like a golden age for creators, because it's like now, like, I'll talk to like comic book writers who, like, I was reading their stuff as a teenager, and I'm like, I can't, if you would have told me back then, if I'd one day get the chance. I mean, there's a guy me and one of my co-hosts talk to him every month, and I used to read his comic books all the time. I'm like, if you had told teenage me I got to talk to this gentleman every month, once a month, I would have keeled over.
I just had this moment at a convention. I was invited to Pensacon in Pensacola, Florida, to go be, one of their literary guests. And I'm doing a bunch of panels on horror and horror writing and, like urban exploration, because I'm kind of in those, veins at times too. And one of the other people on the panel is Jonathan Mayberry. And, I've read some of Jonathan Mayberry's books and things like that, but I didn't realize that, he was the first person to write Black Panther with Namor. And, that I grew up reading his comic lines, that he oversaw these entire lines of properties that my entire childhood was spent upon. And he puts out a stack of business cards in the panel because people are asking questions and things like that. And, I'm talking about my part of like, hey, I'm a newer content creator. Here's how I got into it. And he was like, yeah, if anybody has questions about, film development, or you're trying to get your books and novels made into a film role or something like that, here's my card. And I'm just sitting there and like, I'm going to take a card. Everybody in the audience laughs. And after the panel, I'm like nerding out over the fact that I am with John Mayberry, who I realize is a literary icon for me, even though him and I are right next to each other at the convention signing our own stuff together. But like, so I think there's always going to be this level, especially as geeks, right? We're always going to be like nerding out about each other's works and just being like, oh my God, I love your stuff, And I
love the background stuff, just talking to these people where it's like, oh, why did you do this in my favorite story? Or it's like, where were you when where did you get the idea for this? Just all the background stuff. I just love knowing all that. And it just makes the stories better, I think, when you know exactly what went into it, the actual blood, sweat, and tears they put into a story. And
oh, absolutely. I mean, I've definitely got some weird ones on my own on like where did my novel series get born from, and so all right, well, I guess that's the opening to tell that then. I'm on a podcast talk about stories.
Do it.
So so I write a novel series called The Seventh Age, and the series is about what happens when the Illuminati, the Masons, and a bunch of secret societies have had magic forever. And a group of anarchists in Chicago level the playing field, and they give magic to everybody in the world. Nothing could possibly go wrong, right? And so it's sarcastic urban fantasy about the end of the world as we bring magic crashing back on us. But I'm an electrician by day, and so I was a local 134 electrician, and I was at one point in the deep tunnels underneath Chicago, and I was going through the CTA closets, like deep down. I had a flashlight. It's like 8 o'clock in the morning at best, but it's pitch black down here. And, just one closet after another, opening up, checking breakers, doing my thing. And I open up one closet and I just feel this wave of water wash over me. And I'm like, ugh, crap. And I shine my flashlight down, and it's actually a swarm of cockroaches crawling all over me and just washed out from me. Now I start screaming like crazy. I go running up that ladder. My foreman is having a field day. He's cracking up, like completely toppled over. I had to drive home with like out pants on and stuff like that. I get on home, and later that night, I sit on down and I write this chapter about a plague demon of insects, for my novel, like kind of coming out of the sewers. And that's where like a lot of the things that I write about in my novel series are things inspired from some of the crazy cool things I got to see as an electrician, like that most people never get a chance to, encounter unless they're in the trades themselves.
Oh yeah, that's like it's DG Chichester I talk to every month. Like back in the 90s, like he wrote like Daredevil for a bunch of years, and like he said he would keep like a clip file. Like if he saw a magazine article or something out of the newspaper, he would keep a clip file, and it's like, oh, I need a story. There's couple story ideas at least came from this clip file where it's just like, oh yeah, can't remember what he told me he came up with, but it's like people stealing organs. There you go.
I'm still waiting for somebody to write the official Florida Man novel.
Oh yeah. You know what they say, that there you go. You came up with the idea. That's your job.
Now, trust me, I got plenty that I'm hooked on. But at some point, I think I am going to bake Florida Man into my novel series in some capacity. Like, that guy's got to get magic. And just, Florida Man obliterates himself with a fireball after trying to summon 3 demons, or something like ridiculous.
Or a Florida Man game or something.
Ooh, that could be fun. You all sit down and play characters, and the goal is to see who can survive the longest before something tragic happens that you do to yourself.
Exactly. Oh yeah, I mean, set in the real world, Florida Man's an evil spirit jumping back and forth, something.
But yeah, no, that's actually one of the fun things about gaming that I do like in tabletop. The stories are infinite.
Yeah.
Right. You just like comics, right? I can take like the book, The Black Ballad. We are writing a campaign storyline. And even our Pat Edwards, who's one of the co-founders of the studios and one of the other main writers, just ran a stream the other night that is telling a tale that isn't in the book. It's just in the setting, just like, oh, this would make a really good one-shot for this kind of session. And so that's the cool thing. We get to create a setting and material that other people can, even ourselves, tell side stories in. So one of the things we're doing as a studio is we have an open submission where anybody who wants to become a novelist, we've partnered up. I got to tie my literary side to my game side with this studio. Anybody who wants to write a novel in our worlds can actually read the game book and actually submit a pitch to us for an idea for a novel for publication. And actually have like tie-in fiction be officially published. And our first novel, Duskwalker, is going to launch at the same time that our book gets delivered. And Crystal is Graber. She's already writing it. And it's this her idea was that, hey, you have this afterlife and you have this playable species of characters called the Unhallowed. And they are people who have escaped from the afterlife, but are still finding themselves chained to purgatory in the real world. And every time they go to sleep, their soul descends into the afterlife. So her novel's about this person who escapes and realizes that everybody that he loves is still down in the afterlife, and the only way that he can see them is by like going to sleep each night. But then he can't really interact with them in the same way because right as calamity hits them, he has to wake back up. So it's kind of this like inversion on, it's like a reverse haunting with some diabolical twists in it. And so, but it's a story that's not the story of the campaign that you are playing in the Black Ballad. Ours is just a mega event but the setting itself can spawn like nearly infinite tales.
Oh, I mean, that sounds great, right? A novel in there. This is coming from a man who's never written a book in his life. That sounds.
Hey, we were almost contemplating doing a graphic novel, and we still might do it in the future. Because I mean, we have all of these amazing artists, and if any of the artists at the end of this are like, "Hey, I really have an idea for a graphic novel that I want to publish," like, great, let's go. So that's some of the other stuff I'm really excited about, like kind of in the future for Storytellers Forge, provided we keep making as we're going. I mean, we're in the middle of crowdfunding right now, so the further we get, the healthier start we have.
Oh, and again, you mentioned a soundtrack. I mean, I love soundtracks. I mean, you could give me like the most horrible movie, but if it has a great soundtrack, I will listen the hell out of that soundtrack.
Oh, I'm gonna have to share with you. Do you like metal?
Yes.
Okay, so the Dia Morte has this video called "Where the Light Grows Cold." They're the band behind it, but "Where the Light Grows Cold" was a video with this. I guess to go all the way back, there was this book that I had written called The Red Opera, and it's another game book, and it's a story about warlocks in this war, and it sort of its origins kind of began in my kitchen. Again, I'm an electrician, and I did concert lighting for a while, and so I had this metal band, bunch of my friends, Drake Mephisto, and they were like had an ensemble cast from Cradle Filth, Symphony X. They were just an ensemble band that was putting on a special Red Opera Dia Morte kind of cast, and they were talking about how hard it was to get metal out into the world. And I was like, guys, you have the Budapest Scoring Orchestra composing like entire backtracks. Your music like is amazing. If you guys strip out the lyrics, I could write an entire campaign with it. So me, Courtney Penny, who's our lead editor, and Pat Edwards got the download of the lyric sheets. Everybody in the room was kind of like, all right, we can do this. And I was like, the Venn diagram between people who like metal and enjoy games was like basically a circle.
Yeah.
We're like, all right, let's start writing. And it was supposed to be just this tiny little thing that was going to be like band merch, right? For them to go on out at their like concerts and be like, yeah, we also have this, storyline. I get like 10,000 words in, and I call up the guy in the band, and I'm like, listen, I've built an entire world based off this soundtrack.
Oh,
we're going to have to go much bigger. And he was like, absolutely, just freaking go for it. And so at that point, he kind of cut us loose. He cut our writer loose to build a world out of poems, basically. And we spent about a year making that. And we kind of came up with our first mega campaign book. And when we were done, the band loved it so much, they went and made an entire song based off of the book rather than the other way around. It was called Where the Light Grows Cold. And it's the first time I've ever had a music video and a song dedicated to me.
Wow.
And I was like, oh crap. And that's it. That's my like life achievement bucket list unlocked. And then this time around with the Black Ballad, we're coming up with the story, and then the band is writing the album. So it's really kind of been this like full circle of awesome creativity. And when they're doing the orchestral album for it now, but when it's done, then they're going to take and do the full metal rendition. And that has all like the crazy lyrics and, their story there to it. So it's, go check out some of Dia Morte's music. I mean, I'll drop you a link for that Where the Light Grows Cold trailer at some point. It's epic.
Oh yeah. When we're done here, please send me like links to them, to all the Black Ballad stuff, because it's going in the show notes. So yeah. It sounds awesome. Yeah, because the music and gaming, there must be some correlation. Because like I said, the only time I really gamed was like back in high school, and like a group of us would always get together at my one friend's house, and like he always had like hard rock or heavy metal playing, and it's just, so I've always associated gaming with like heavy metal and stuff. Yeah.
I can't, somebody asked me like, why do I listen to a lot of metal music? Is because I can't write without listening to music. But I can't understand the lyrics of most metal. So I listen to a lot of like folk metal and like, Gaelic metal and like metal in other languages because I don't know what they're saying. I don't really care. It sounds awesome. It's got emotion and beats to it, but it doesn't bleed into, my keyboards as I write. But then there's another aspect to this that took it even a step further. We had music and we have novelists and we have artists, and out of the blue throughout the year, I had become friends with Carlos Ferro, who's the voice actor of Da Vinci from Assassin's Creed, the voice actor of Dom from Gears of War, and a bunch of other like video games. And we kind of found out that we were sort of, kindred spirits in a lot of our like music tastes and nightlife and things like that. And in December, he knew what we were doing for Storytellers Forge. I mean, he had seen my game books. He had seen these other things I had written. I mean, we had done a convention circuit for about a year and a half together. And he was like, hey, can you send me some writing of something that you guys have? And I was like, yeah, sure. Here you go. Here's one of our letters, something I can read. Like voice act. And I was like, well, it's a, we're a game book. And he's like, no, just I want to try something. And he did this read of our character Majin the Betrayer, and it was just awesome. Like it's in some of our trailers now. Like I was like, okay, wait a minute. We have all these different NPCs throughout the book, and storytellers often have to like mimic and change our voices, and sometimes it hits, sometimes it does not hit. But for the main character Majin, there's like a series of like letters that are in the book that are just kind of from Majin to like the group. That all kind of talking to the storyteller, but also talking to the players all at the same time. We're now having like voice actors actually narrate those, and then the band is writing custom scores directly to the narration in addition to like the soundtrack. So at that point it has become like we are getting to hit everything as a transmedia property of voice acting, writing, art, layout, like everything is getting put in there. Our trailer has like some 3D assets and video production. If anybody ever listens to this and you design video games, please contact us. We are eventually going to want to make a pitch.
See, that's what I was thinking about asking you. Was like, would you ever? I'm sure you'd be up for a Black Ballad video game.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. First step, make the book. Show off what we can do. Here's this world. Here's this setting. Here's all of these tales that you can tell from it. And the cool thing is, like, even if somebody went to make a video game from it, right? And they're like, hey, you got this setting? I'd be like, cool. Your writing team, what story would you want to tell in here? It doesn't ever have to be a direct port. It's expansive. Oh. And that's really cool to me as a creative.
Or one day, I mean, the big budget movie. I mean, do you think that people who created Dungeons and Dragons thought they'd get a movie one day?
Well, yes, but I think that this is also, I don't think people remember that this is, I think, like the 4th time they've tried.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So, we'll I have high hopes for this one, though. I actually do, because this time it's by, a whole different crew, and people actually play the Critical Role. Right? They, at Geek and Sundry, Matt Mercer and that crew, they have Vox Machina on Amazon Prime. Have you seen that?
No.
Okay. Absolutely amazing. And great animated series, fantastic story. But they started off as a group of voice actors that just had an idea to get together, start playing D&D in, their house and record it. And now they have a major, Amazon Prime, like they crowdfunded and raised up. They were going to do their own series by themselves, and Amazon kind of swooped in and was like, no. We can do this better. But I mean, it's crazy to think where that would go. I mean, if that ever happened, my day job, I'm still in my day job.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And, coworkers often ask me, they're like, when are you just going to quit and go do that full time? And I was like, yeah, the day that Netflix ever decides to make a movie series out of my novels.
Yeah.
So that'd be a threshold.
Yeah. No, I hear you. I have a day job. It's like, as soon as it pays the bills. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's got its merits because hustle, like, and I'm sure you've probably had and talked to a lot of artists in the comic book industry, and it is rough and it is a hard work. I know a lot of them myself, and it's just page count of cover art after cover art after cover art, and like barely making it, right? And that's why they go do conventions, right? And that's where they get a chance to actually sell some of their art and like actually earn a living off of it. But it's never like, it's never enough, it seems, to be able to do it full time and like live. It's always, you have to hustle, and you have to hustle eternally.
Yeah.
And then they end up taking jobs that they don't want to take just to pay bills. The perks, I think, of like having sort of that time split of I do this during the day and then I'm doing this at night, means that the stuff that I'm working on creatively is stuff that I want to work on. I did ghostwriting for about 2 years. I will never ghostwrite again. So I was like, there's no point. Why am I doing this? I have a day job. What? So I was like, if I'm going to create something, I'm going to do it because I want to.
Yeah, a lot of the creative stuff, it seems you have to be in it for the love and not the money. Because, like even the comic book writers and artists, it seems like the ones who do it full time, anymore, it seems like they have to do so many different titles and books that it's, I don't know how some of these people don't burn out. They have, they have so many, because some of them will have their own creator-owned stuff, or some of them might work for Marvel or DC or both. And it's just...
Oh, I have noticed the longer I've been around, in like talking to a lot of other like peers, the ones who are in it for the love, that even they have all of these things, we are just we just love doing it.
Yes.
And so like the burnout doesn't really happen. I'm currently doing Universal Soldier, Something with the Crow, writing my third novel, and I'm doing the Black Ballad, and I got my day job. I had to give up video games mostly in order to find the time to do this. But, I am writing in all of these different properties and things because I love them and they're cool. And I still have more ideas for things and other projects that I want to write beyond the Black Ballad. Like, it's like, no, I already have like the next things that I want to do. I want to do actually, I shouldn't talk about them because then all of a sudden, then I'm going to be held accountable to actually have them made in case I need to pull the plug.
I mean, you said the magic word. I don't know if you can mention anything about it, but you mentioned The Crow?
I did. So it actually comes out in 2 weeks. So Evil Genius Games had acquired the license for the official Crow RPG, and they were... had announced that they were going to go find some like award-winning writers to go actually write and develop that. Now, they had no idea who I was. I am the biggest Crow fan. I am the goth kid from the 90s, yes. Right? I dressed up as the Crow every freaking year, not on Halloween, mind you, just randomly. And I write all the novels. I like when they talk about like, here's a series that's passionate to you, like that was it for me. And I had turned in my email. I was like, let me write this, please. I am your person. And they're like, we're sorry, we don't really know who you are. And I was like, here's all the stuff I do. And by the way, here's a picture of me in high school, like dressed as the Crow. And they read my writing. They brought me on, and my first interview with the studio owner from Evil Genius, Dave Scott, he was like, listen, just so you know, you're going to have to, the story's going to have to, it's official fiction. We're going to have to turn this in to the studio. It's going to have to be approved by, the powers and the creators of the Crow. And I was like, yes, that is the point. I want it to be. And so I spent the time writing. The story's called Crow, Prayers of the Past. And what it does is it ties all of the kind of comics and movies and things like that together into a setting where the Reborn are there and you can actually play them. Because there's multiple stories beyond just Eric Draven.
Yes.
Throughout the expanded parts. And it's still a tale of revenge and tragedy. It's still very, very dark, but it is available. Like, you can already download the PDF, but it also comes out in physical print, hopefully in time for me to have it at C2E2 in a few weeks. So
that was probably one of the greatest experiences of your life, but was it also scary that it's like you got to write this thing about this thing you love since you were a kid?
There was definitely a lot of, I'm going to make sure because the people who love The Crow still and know about it are like, no. There has been some train wrecks in The Crow.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? We know that. We're well aware of that. And it's like, no. I am like an actual like comic junkie. I love The Crow and I want to do it right. And so what are the core themes? And yeah, I spent a lot of time making sure, but when I got sent off to the studio for approval and I was waiting, and then it came back with like, they were giving me like artwork of like, this is amazing. Here's a snapshot of your arch villain that we had like illustrated, and it's like, oh, I'm officially approved. This is great. And they had a whole call with me, and they were like, how did you manage to do this? And I was like, well, I freaking just love this stuff. And they're like, great. And then now I get to work on another one with them. So,
oh, nice.
It's like, no, I think there was a lot of, I was nervous, but I was like absolutely not going to say no to like dive into that chance. And because it is a major life-changing moment for me, every time I publish something, I get a new tattoo, and I'm starting to get more and more covered.
Nice.
I'm kind of terrified of the fact that I'm going to have to go get the tattoo of the crow on my ribs. I know that is going to hurt.
Oh yeah.
That thought still haunts me. I'm like, maybe I should find a different spot other than my ribs, but
well, through the pain, while it hurts, just remember, it'd be like this thing that you loved, you are now a part of it.
Yep. So, and I also had the realization that I am now writing more things than I ever did when I first started. Progression of anybody that managed to, kind of keep doing it even through the failures. And I might have to change my policy on the tattoo to publication thing. It seemed really nice when I had one novel, and then two, and then I started doing other things, and it was like, oh, yeah, I didn't get anything for the ghost writing though.
Wow.
Yeah, that doesn't count. So,
but that's great. So, what else are you working? You named a few things. What else are you working on?
So I'm also doing my third novel in my series, which is Seventh Age Decay. And that one is about, like, the tagline for that one is like cigarettes, misfits, and magic. Might be the only salvation as we bring back like Americans' urban legends and gods to like kind of try to help us. And then I'm also doing Universal Soldier with Pat Edwards as well. Him and I are co-writing that one. Universal Soldier had its movie run, back in the day, and, the same studio that had acquired the rights to make The Crow, they also got Universal Soldier. And then there's a few other projects that are very beloved by anime and comic book fans that I can't talk about yet, but they are on the horizon next year for me.
Wow. Okay, you've hit the big time, because I swear it's the successful writers who always have at least one thing where they're like, yeah, something's coming, but I can't talk about it, so.
Yeah, it's the first time that I'm ever under a, like, we actually can't talk about this until marketing is announcing it to the public. And I was always like, what don't you want people to hear about it? And then actually doing my own, like doing the Black Ballad for our own studio, I kind of realize sometimes why there is a sort of go now approach to some of that marketing behind some of the things. And other times it's just strictly because you don't want a lot of things can go wrong in project development, and you don't want people's hopes to get up there that something's going to happen. Just like The Crow, how many times has a Crow remake movie been announced in the past 14 years, only to have it canceled?
Yeah.
You know, I think we're on the third Akira before Akira may or may not ever get made, you know, so I think there's also some of that stuff as well of they want to make sure the book's actually done first before, you know, before announcements are made.
Okay, here's a question I always ask people. I'm going to tweak it. All right. So is there any property, it could be anything, any property that you love that you would love to write for that you have never had a chance to write for yet?
Oh, there's a lot of them, but I think, let's see, any hardcore property. I would really love to do more stuff with anime companies. I would love to do something with Hellsing or Vampire Hunter D, that I grew up with. I would Battle Angel Alita, if they were ever able to continue making more of them. I would tackle the offices of Disney in order to be able to make a Battle Angel Alita RPG with all the cyborgs and all the different character creation options. Oh my god, it's such a cool world, and it has that dystopian element with, like, you know, I think that's it. Battle Angel Alita. And yeah, it was one of my favorite manga series growing up, and I thought the movie that they had released did really good. It actually captured the true spirit of the manga series. It was the best animated movie adaptation that I'd ever seen. And then Disney bought Sony, and now it's rest of its potential. Or did it by Sony? Disney acquired 20th Century Fox, I think it was. They had acquired Disney bought something, and then it is now stuck in sort of that limbo, and there's a whole group of people out there that are trying to be like, no, keep making more. But if the rumor was that they are going to make like a animated series or like another Netflix show for it, and it's like, okay, if you guys are going to expand into other properties, I can make a killer RPG based off that.
Oh yeah. Especially anything like with a big company like Disney or something. I mean, aren't they all about, merchandise, games, and whatever? Yeah.
So, yeah, you've inspired me. I think I'll have to go track down who I have to email and be like, let me do this.
I'm glad I can help. All right. Again, I don't want to keep. I always say this to all you successful people. I'm like, I don't want to keep you long because I'm sure you're probably writing the Black Ballad. That's a big project, but again, you're probably writing 2 or 3 other things at the same time. So,
yes, actually, that is the case in this one. But even tonight, when I'm done with this, I'm going to quickly eat some food, and then I'm going to continue writing a chapter about a class of clerics that are godless and siphon the power off dead gods.
Oh, nice.
So,
okay. Again, thank you for your time. Promote the Black Ballad. Where can people get it? When can people get it? And whatever else you want to plug, the floor is yours.
So right now, the big focus is helping an indie studio of creatives get off the ground. Black Ballad is currently crowdfunding. You can go to backerkit.com, type in Black Ballad. I'm pretty sure the links will be in the show notes if you're hearing this. The trailers are all up on YouTube. You can also, they're actually on Dia Morte's channel. So if you catch Black Ballad trailers on YouTube, you can also just go check out some awesome metal music that goes along and ties with it. So right now, that is the big focus. You can also go to StorytellersForge.com, and you can read all about our studio, our team, our missions, all these wonderful people that are helping us bring this to life. And that is the primary focus. But if you're a novel reader, the Seventh Age series is sarcastic shit about the end of the world. And so we take magic and I crash it back out into the modern age rather than keep it hidden like a lot of urban fantasy. So,
do you have like your own personal website where it's like, if we just want to find the writings of Rick?
Yep, I do. So I am RickHeinzWrites.com. I should also remember to actually say that part too. So I'm RickHeinzWrites.com, and that's actually where you can find where you can get the Crow as well. I got a link up there and everything with like, here's what the Crow is and everything for that too.
Oh, nice. All right. And I am going to go on record. Rick, you are a friend of the show now. Anytime you want to come back and promote, you have my email. Email me. And we will set up a time and we will do this again.
Absolutely. Especially, I'm definitely going to have to do this next year when I'm able to talk about the thing that I couldn't talk about on this show.
Yes.
Because that is like the perfect follow-up.
Okay. So. Definitely. Yes. And again, the crow stuff. Yeah, I'm down for crow talk. So.
Oh yeah, anytime.
All right. So.
Thank you so much for having me, and I'd love to be back.
Yes, thank you. Definitely, I'll have you back. And everyone, yes, Black Ballad, go get it. Go get the soundtrack. Go get the game. Go get everything.
You can literally buy a tier where we will write you as a god in the universe.
Oh, I might have to do that. All right. All right, everyone. Rick Heinz, thank you so much. It's been great having you.
Yep.
All right, everyone. Catch you next time.